Hi, I'm Zoid. I'm going to talk about what we can learn from jazz music and apply to electronic music. As someone who's been involved with both jazz and electronic music for a really long time, it's very different, but there are things that we can look at in a similar way. First of all, you have to learn to play what you hear. Play what you hear. It means, jazz musicians say it when they mean you learn to hear music in your head and then play it on your instrument, hear the notes and then play them, as opposed to playing and then you hear it, like you're thinking about, I'll play this scale or I'll play that phrase or whatever it is. You don't want to think about it, you just want to have a process of music being generated in your mind and then flowing out on your instrument. When I used to hear that when I was 18, 19, it scared me because my ear wasn't very good at that time. And it just seemed like a kind of impossible task to play what I was hearing when I couldn't hear anything in the first place. But that's a kind of partly what attracted me to jazz in the first place. It's like there are these great musicians, John Coltrane, Charlie Parker, Miles Davis, that you look up to and you try and emulate in a way by practicing, not by shooting a heroin, but by practicing all the time. Like John Coltrane just constantly practiced for, taking a break in between sets. You'd be practicing, like never stop practicing. And that drive to be better and achieve something that was there built into jazz. It's very based on the idea that practice is going to make you better and better and better until you reach some incredibly high mountaintop level. When I started studying jazz in 1998, I already had gotten really into electronic music and been making it, and I felt like I was mainly into electronic music, and the jazz was just to give me insights into music, melody, harmony, rhythm, how does it work, develop my ear, those kind of things, because at that time, there was no courses in electronic music that I could do, not like full-time degree courses. There wasn't any. It was too new at that time. And I was listening to techno and I was like, okay, I loved it, but I remember one time I was like going into college studying jazz, and I was thinking, oh, I'll play like an example of some really musically interesting techno to my ensemble teacher. And it was like, okay, actually I was like, had records and I was looking through them and I'm like, well, it's kind of all in 4/4 and very simple chords, and I was looking for something that a jazz musician and a jazz teacher would appreciate beyond, it's just good for dancing to. I was like, where is it? It must be something in 5 or 7 or with interesting chord changes, and I hadn't yet discovered what I would later on find out was the really interesting musical electronic music, things like Lars Bartkun and Ian O'Brien played some of his stuff, but I didn't have it yet. So I guess the techno music I was listening to, Detroit techno, reflex stuff, whatever, it was interesting from a sound world perspective. The melodies, it's more easy listening pop music. That's an interesting way to put it. It's the sound of the music that makes it so attractive. So I didn't bring in anything in the end to play for my ensemble teacher, and I just, at that time, felt like, okay, I'm gonna learn everything I can from jazz. And actually I went full time into it for a number of years. I sold all my equipment at that time. I had like Akai sampler and desk and a couple of drum machines and synths and stuff, and I sold it all. I was like, I'm gonna really concentrate on jazz now. This is like 1990, probably 99, 2000, 99. that was probably 99, 2000. I went for a number of years, maybe 3 or 4 years. I was practicing a lot, 4 or 6 hours a day for a long time, ear training 1 hour a day, trying to get my ear. By 2001, in 1998, my ear was, I really wasn't, I was like the worst of my gear. I couldn't recognize intervals or sing scales or do any of that stuff. And I was like, oh, I really need to work hard on that. By 2001, I could hear 6-note chords and name them correctly. And I passed that part of my exam in 2001, which was really tough. When I got back in later on, got back into electronic music later on, I felt I benefit from all of the developments that my ear went through. But now, when I think about it, I'm interested in the idea that as a jazz musician, you're going to learn a lot of vocabulary. Everybody talks about vocabulary. You're learning, transcribing Charlie Parker solos, and you're learning phrases and like linear expressions, Pat Martino, and been learning a lot of those recently. And you kind of absorb this language of music, and you try and get to the point where you can speak that language. You can create phrases yourself of your own, with your own taste and your own ideas in them. It's like a writer writing in a language. You don't write in a language that you can't understand well. You know, if we're native English speakers, we can write in the English language without thinking about it. And then like Samuel Beckett, he got bored of that, so he was like, now I'll write in French, and went and lived in France and learned French and wrote in French for the rest of his life. He had to get there to that point. You couldn't just write in a language where, if you were like in, you know, very basic level with that language. So how does this apply to electronic music then? Well, we're not adding to our vocabulary in the same way, not with little phrases of notes, but we're adding to our vocabulary in a different way with timbres and types of beat and all the components of tracks that we hear. When you are increasing your vocabulary, your language in electronic music, it's a lot to do with your listening and how focused you are when you're listening. DJs do this, or they used to anyway, collect music and listening to it and kind of compartmentalizing it and filing it in their mind. That was one of the most important things that they would do. Like Alan Dobbin, the DJ who introduced me to techno in the mid-90s, he had several thousand records and he knew them, all of them, every track, because that's all he did was just listen to the records. And he would like work on these mixtapes for months and get the selection of tracks just to be perfect, a 1 hour or 1.5 hour mix, perfect selection. We really work on that development of the mix from start to finish. Nowadays mixes are like thrown together and half the tunes are just new releases that it's not the same now. But I look back, I think what the DJs used to do was like increase their vocabulary until it was huge, just like a jazz musician does, increasing the vocabulary more, learning more and more phrases, and then having a great big vocabulary to pick from enables you to pick the best and then make something unique to you. Same with a DJ used to like have a really big library, not just like library of music, but in their head choices are there. It allows them to pick the best choice. So when you're making electronic music, it's the same thing. What choices have you got? Are you like opening your door and being like, oh, a 909 kick and a 909 snare? No, I'll do an 808 snare. Oh. It's not gonna be unique. What choices have you got? What choices are coming up in your mind? You know, when you listen to Aphex Twin, I always talk about Aphex Twin, but there's so many choices available to him because he has this very wide range of taste in what he's made, what he's listened to, You know, you can listen to his sets, his DJ sets over the years. There's so much music that he's played that he knows. It's all part of the vocabulary, and of course all the sounds, all the equipment that he has. It was the same with Luke Vibert. Not to the same extent probably, but you know, huge range of possibilities is there. I think the amount of possibilities that are there for you is connected to how uniquely you're able to put them together, how well you're able to put them together. And at the same time, if you have less vocabulary, that's okay too. You can still choose wisely. You can still make a smaller vocabulary work in interesting ways for you, uniquely, by developing your confidence and taste that you're able to know. I want to do it in this way that I haven't heard before. Okay, let's say there's broadly speaking, there's two kinds of musicians, music makers out there. Well, let's take the example of Sonny Rollins and John Coltrane. This is what I've heard about Sonny Rollins. I never got to see him play live, or Coltrane. Obviously, Coltrane died way before I was born. But Sonny was said to be a player who, if he was feeling inspired, was the best in the world at playing lines, coming up, improvising, just new stuff, incredible stuff. But if he wasn't feeling inspired, it could be just lackluster. You know, he wouldn't be coming up with the ideas. He'd have to be feeling inspired to do it. And he took a number of sabbaticals in his career where he stopped playing gigs and just practiced, you know, under Brooklyn Bridge to get back in a place where he could feel inspired again. So for him, it was like that. He couldn't just switch it on all the time. He had to get inspiration, and it was there sometimes and it wasn't there other times. Now, Coltrane was different. He was on this different kind of journey where he practiced an incredible amount, but he was incredibly consistent. He never had an off night. Like, after he had only a short career, it was like, you know, kind of roughly 57 to 67, those 10 years. And during those 10 years, he went from playing kind of hard bop to playing very out there free jazz and pretty crazy sounding music. But during that progression, he was on this journey to get better and better and better, and he would have been incredibly consistent through a lot of those years that if you went and saw him, it was gonna blow your mind. And that's more like what I want to do, is reach that point where I'm consistently able to achieve something through the work and practice and dedication that I put in every day. I get to that point. I don't know if it's possible. That's my goal. That's what I'm doing. And in the course I teach, that is the goal of the course as well, is to get people to be able to be more consistent, hear music in their head and have the ability to make it real. Link in the description for that. And I hope this video was interesting. I'll see you in the next one.